Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in today. Today, I want to talk about another school subject. I just love doing these. I'm so passionate about education and just tutoring and doing everything I can to talk school and anatomy and nursing, and I just love it. So today, I want to give a brief overlook, as brief as I can possibly make it, about anatomy. So this is going to be very much so an intro to anatomy as a whole. It's not really going to be much physiology, but I'm just going to give you a crash course about anatomy. And as you guys know, I record a lot of times in my car as I'm driving. I don't have materials in front of me all the time. I'm just kind of rambling on. So this is all from memory, and I might try to go back to it at the end and really edit it and look things over and really listen and make sure that it is fully composed with every detail I can think of a rundown about anatomy. So basically, the biggest things about anatomy as a whole, right? Anatomy is like the human body, everything that encompasses it, and kind of an overview of how it works together to create the human body. And the point is, when you think anatomy or when you think the human body, just always think about, like, they'll talk about homeostasis. And this is the whole point of like your entire body as a scientific aspect, is basically like your body works together however it can to maintain homeostasis. So I like to think of like a straight line, okay? A straight line is like homeostasis. That's when everything in the body is functioning as it should. There's no issues going on. There's no compensation happening by different, body systems or by all sorts of different mechanisms to make sure that they're maintaining that like flat line. And I'm not talking flat line like death. I'm talking, when you think homeostasis, think of just like a flat line. There's no ripples, there's no waves, there's no up and down. Everything's on like an even keel. So that's what homeostasis is. And that is the body's goal in everything it does, is just to maintain homeostasis. There's nothing going on that causes that line to get skewed or rippled or jagged, okay? So then you can also think about a thermostat. Okay, so think of a straight line and then think of a thermostat, the thing in your house that you use to regulate and change the temperature of your house. So I like to think about that as like the compensation method, or, up and down ripples in that flat line of homeostasis. And this is what the body does, whether it goes up and down or stays at a nice, constant, comfortable temperature, that flat line of a temperature, right? But it can go up and down to like regulate that temperature and get it back to homeostasis or comfortability or a flat line, okay? So when that temperature is being adjusted, think of that as the body compensating or doing things, skewing that line, that flat line of homeostasis, to get it back to a comfortable flat line of homeostasis, if that makes any sense. You just have to picture it. So my thing when I tutor and when I teach is a lot of visualizations, and it's a lot of keywords. Like, this is what concept mapping is. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's like all these keywords that go together and are strung together and relate to one another as far as like a subject goes. It's like keywords. It's like concept mapping. So that is how I learn and how I teach, along with like visualizations. And you have to learn things right to the core in the beginning and build a strong foundation and understand things at the very core of it when you first start to learn it, or as you go and as you expand on it, it's going to get mucky, it's going to get confusing. So you have to understand the very basics of stuff before you can expand on it and go into all these different avenues of it, right? So you're picturing a human body, and you're picturing that flat line of homeostasis, and you're picturing a thermostat going up and down and regulating the temperature or the body to a comfortable homeostatic, if that's a word, flat line, condition. Okay, so that's the goal. So in doing all of that, the things that are responsible for doing that and for maintaining homeostasis begins with the different body systems. So I believe there are 12 different body systems. So always picture this human body from head to toe. When you open an anatomy book, it's usually in like the first chapter or two, or in the introductory chapters. It's just a human body from head to toe just standing there. So what encompasses that human body is 12 different body systems. And I like to think of it as I'm picturing the body, we're moving from the top down. So the first thing always should be the skin, something that you can't essentially see like on top, but like the general overview is like the skin. So the integumentary system. And always remember that the largest organ in the body, if you see that question, it's the skin or the integumentary system. So that skin encompasses the main thing of protection, fighting stuff. It's like a nice thick, I like to think of it as like a nice thick barrier to keeping things out. It really starts with that largest organ in the body. It really starts with the integumentary system in protecting the body from all of the foreign things that can enter, through cuts or breaks in the skin. You're breathing something in, stuff's getting in your eye. Like the first line of defense is always going to be the skin, and that's the largest organ in the body. So that's the first body system, right? And then, so I like to kind of begin by the things you can't really see from top down, but the larger skewed items. So that would be what we just talked about, the skin, right? The integumentary system. Then it's like the lymphatic system, which is basically the body's filtration system of, nourishing all of the organs and really dealing with defense and, like the waste kind of, but not the waste because it's not bowel and bladder, like foreign substances. And the lymphatic system runs through the whole body system. It encompasses every thing in the body system as like a filtration of getting things in and out and throughout the body, to either expel it and get it out of the body, or to supply the body with like healthy things and things that are good for it. So that's the lymphatic system. You should be picturing like green little dots. They look like little parasites all through the body. That's the lymphatic system, okay? And then we can start from head to toe, talking about from head to toe. So then we're going to talk about like the skeletal system. So I like to think that it's starting, kind of from head to toe. So it's starting with the skull. So the skeletal system is really this is how we develop. This is how we kind of grow. It's what deals with movement. It's one of the things that deals with movement. It's one of the things, the major thing is that it protects the organs, those nice, dense, very strong bones. We have 206 of them in our body that are there to basically mainly protect the organs, and also play a part in movement type of deal, the body moving along with like the muscles and things like that. So the skeletal system, I always think of it as the beginning of the head to toe system. And then we get down, I'm picturing we're going down and we're getting to the heart. So the circulatory system. So this is the heart. This is all the different blood vessels and everything that composes our circulation in our body. So our different valves, veins, and arteries, but really starting with the heart. And all the different blood systems that goes on. So this kind of deals with, another sort of a filtration system of things coming into the bloodstream, things going out of the bloodstream, and nourishing all of the different organs that make up our entire body. Begins really with the circulation system. So, and there's a whole pathway of the heart. Once you get deeper into anatomy, you're going to learn the whole pathway of the heart, depending on where you want to start. There's a whole system that, the blood comes into the heart from wherever. It depends on where you're going to start, and it's, deoxygenated. So it comes to the heart, it goes through the whole pathway and all the valves and the chambers and all that. And then, it goes back out to the lungs to get oxygenated, that exchange of gas. It's getting the CO2 out, it's bringing oxygen in, it kind of filters the blood, makes it oxygenated, and then it comes back into the heart a different way And from there it goes through the heart where it didn't go before, and then it eventually goes totally out to the body, that oxygenated blood, to all the different organs, to really oxygenate them and keep those organs alive so they can function, properly, as a whole. And I forgot to mention from head to toe, one of the starting things too is the very obvious nervous system. So that's the brain. That's really where it should start after you do the things you can't see. Looking from head to toe, I forgot to mention the very important nervous system. So that's the brain, and there's two different types. It's the central nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, or peripheral nervous system. I'm not going to get too into that right now. I want to keep it pretty basic, but the point of that obviously is that we receive like stimuli and messages via neurons throughout our body, and those come to the brain to kind of be interpreted, and from something as simple as like a smell that comes in through our nose goes up to our brain to be processed, and deciphered, to something as difficult as movement. These stimuli are coming, from our different areas, and they're going up to the brain, those signals, and it's a whole system of what happens to get the body, the muscles to react after it receives that stimuli. So it's very intricate, very difficult. I'm not going to get too much in it and break down, the nervous system too much right now, because this is just an intro, but I forgot to mention that's the very, top of the head to toe person standing there. So yeah, that's kind of where it starts. And then, so we're down to the heart and all of that. And then we'll go to the lungs. And so the lungs deal with, the exchange of gases and bringing, it really starts with like the nose and mouth, bringing in that oxygen, that outside oxygen, bringing it into the body, down to the lungs, where the lungs, does its job, the exchange of gases, ridding the body of the CO2, blowing that off, and thus breathing. The exchange of gases is really what happens in the lungs. And then, from there, the lungs can kind of get that oxygen to the different tissues, and it plays a part in, the circulatory system and things like that, all the way down to like we're blowing off the things that we don't need, things like that. Also, it has to do with like the respiratory system is like breathing in, pathogens and stuff like that, and harmful things to us. That's a whole nother thing where like we're breathing in these like pathogens and stuff like that. And then the lungs have to deal with kind of, okay, are we going to expel that out? Are we going to deal with the lymphatic system and stuff like that to like cough that out and bring that up and out of the body so it doesn't kind of linger in the body and make us sick and stuff? Or are we going to like hold it in? And then that's a whole nother thing. So again, just trying to keep it very basic in this intro video, but that's really what the respiratory system or the lungs kind of deals with. And then so as we're making our way down, I kind of like to, begin with the digestive system at this point in time, because I'm picturing like right under the lungs is our big liver, which kind of sits right there in the middle. It's like one of the biggest organs. So I kind of think digestive system at this time. So this is going to be, again, it really starts with the mouth, because we're intaking, food and stuff like that that's coming in through our mouth. We're masticating or chewing it, and you'll learn all these terms in anatomy. And then we're going to swallow that bolus of food, and it's going to go down the esophagus and into, the stomach to be dealt with there, dealing with, hydrochloric acid and stomach acid and stuff in there, and kind of breaking that stuff down into, scientific little, what do I want to say, like, it's breaking it down into its most scientific form in the stomach, and then it's kind of going, so we're either going to absorb it, and that has everything to do with like the intestines and stuff like that. We're either going to absorb it into the body and keep it and do what we're going to do with it at that point, or we're going to, transfer it on to from the small intestine to the large intestine, and from there, it's going to be dealt with and stuff like that to be, transferred on to like the large intestine and into the colon and stuff like that, and then out via your stool or urinary system, stuff like that. So the digestive system has everything to do with, eating and taking in nutrients, all the way down to, okay, what are we going to do after we ingest that? Are we going to keep it in the body and deal with it like that? Or are we going to kind of take what we need from it, break it down, and then expel it out? So personally, my favorite body system is the digestive system because it's so intricate, and just actually like all the body systems are, but I just love it because when you picture that the digestive system begins with like your mouth and taking in nutrients, and it literally goes from head to toe until it's, dealt with. When my mom was in anatomy class, she had a different teacher than I did. And she always talks about, like, my mom is 55 at this time. She always talks about how one of the projects they did over Thanksgiving break was they had to go home for the break and they had to write a paper on the entire Thanksgiving dinner process of, like, from intaking the food at Thanksgiving through their mouths, all the way down to, okay, what's happening once that turkey is being swallowed. And they had to, like, write this paper on the whole digestive system and the cool part of the body and what it does when we, like, intake food as far as a digestive system. So really cool stuff. I know I'm a nerd, but it is my favorite body system. And you'll notice too, as we're going here, you should kind of be starting to think about the big picture and how, like, all of these body systems are all related somehow. Like, they all intertwine somehow. And that's the coolest part about science and about anatomy and health, is because everything is so difficult in itself, but then it's so cool because even though, one body system is so intricate in itself, for instance, the endocrine system, I think, is so, intricate and cool. But then, like, how does it all work together in the body to make up the whole body? You know what I mean? And making sure that it's functioning properly and, like, maintaining homeostasis. So it's just, science and health is so cool because you start from the most basic thing, the structural unit, which is a cell, and you build a whole body from that, and, like, body systems, and, like, how you have to learn how they function independently in order to understand how they all work together to encompass a functioning homeostatic body. So it's so cool, And once it really starts to make sense to you, I feel like when you're an intro to anatomy, if you don't know anything at all about anatomy, like, you literally start from the bottom, it's very confusing, and it's a lot at first, I know that. But once you really start to learn the whole thing, like, and it starts to make sense, it's just so freaking cool. That's why so many people love anatomy so much. So we just concluded with digestive. I think here is a good spot to begin talking about endocrine. So we're going to go into the endocrine system. So the endocrine system has everything to do with hormones, okay? And hormones have everything to do with, like, your energy levels, fight or flight, rest and digest. They connect with the nervous system in a way. They deal with the reproductive system, and obviously we know that's different between male and female. So endocrine is everything to do with, like, the hormones and regulating all of that stuff. A lot of things with endocrine, like, they secrete something that triggers the release of something else that triggers, such and such, and ... the rest of the body's processes. So when I think endocrine, I like to think about, fight or flight, rest or digest, and the reproductive system. So then we'll go into the reproductive system, which obviously we know is different between male and female. Males, it's not just about, they kind of call it the reproductive system, but it's more than that. It's like the sexual drive, the reproducing, the just everything to do with that. With the males, it's about the gonads, the testes, the penis, sperm, things like that. With the female, it's the eggs, it's all the hormones that deal with pregnancy and ovulation and menstruation and reproducing and, like, breastfeeding, growing the baby inside you, everything like that. So it's the reproductive system is really cool. You'll get into like different, issues that will happen if these things are impaired in either the male or female. You'll talk about the prostate when it has to do with the male and the importance of that and what that means. And so there's just, this is just a very basic intro to all the body systems, but that's pretty much the reproductive system. And then we talk about the urinary system, which it's not just about like urine and making urine. It's also about like fluid balance in the body. This has everything to do with like antidiuretic hormones. So you'll start to hear how like all these little pieces of the individual puzzle all come together to work with another body system and another body system and another body system to encompass the whole body as a whole and maintaining homeostasis. So the urinary system has everything to do with waste, but then also fluid balance of the body, which, if our fluid balance is off, we can start thinking about the kidneys, and is something there impaired, like is something with, the filtration of the kidneys impaired, because the kidneys are such an important part of the urinary system, as well as, the digestive system, and just everything is connected to the other body system, like that should be the theme that you start hearing, is that even though this certain organ is connected with this body system, it still, plays a role in the other body system and the other body system, thus creating the whole human body and maintaining homeostasis. So urinary, you should be thinking not only about urine and the process of, making urine enough so that it can be, passed through and then excreted or micturated, which means urinated. But it's also what's going on internally as far as like a fluid balance and stuff like that. Because if our fluids are impaired, then we're talking, we could be talking kidney issues where like the filtration part of things is messed up. We could be talking about like dehydration. And if things are dehydrated, that doesn't just mean like you're not ingesting enough water or fluids. That means like if organs are not, hydrated, then they start to not function properly, or are they overhydrated? So thinking of things like edema and, is something going on with the kidneys there, or do we have an issue with, the urine as a whole? Where is the issue? When you talk urinary, you're going to start talking about like UTIs, urinary tract infections. And yes, males can get them too. Like they're very serious. And the problem with UTIs is two things. If you keep getting them, that's a concern. What is going on that makes you keep getting them, but also how far they travel up. So if you keep getting them, that's where we're concerned about scarring happening, like up in the kidneys, which can then impair, the whole function as a kidney, right? But if we're also concerned about how high up is that infection, is it a UTI, or did it go further up into the ureter and up into like the kidneys, and is it traveling upward? Because that's what we're concerned about too. So there's a whole umbrella of things that go with UTIs that you'll start, kind of making these different, what do I want to say, like concept mapping, right? So like you say the word UTI to me and I'm thinking bubble baths, I'm thinking cranberry juice, I'm thinking scarring, I'm thinking kidneys, I'm thinking fluids, like making sure we're intaking enough fluids so that we can flush everything out and flush all those pathogens out. We talk UTIs, I'm also thinking about like fluid balance as a whole. I'm thinking about what can be done, what triggers a UTI, and that's what I mean when I say bubble baths and things like that. Like, so this is just my point, that when you start these classes, that's why concept mapping is so important, and why they always talk about that, because it's like keywords. You hear one keyword and you should associate a million other things with it, and that's what they're trying to get you to start doing in these prereq classes, is like, okay, here's anatomy, where we're going to first start talking about like UTIs. We're going to start talking about the urinary system. From there, we're going to start talking about how it relates to the kidneys and like fluid balance in the body and the hormones that have everything to do with fluid balance and stuff like that. So I don't want to get too deep because this is just an intro video, but that, concept mapping is everything, and making sure that you start putting the pieces together of these different keywords that are related to another. Because I don't know what, major you're going for, but in nursing, it starts at anatomy, because that's where all of the nursing stuff, that's the intro to it. That's the strong foundation that you're building to start all the different nursing stuff. Because when we think nursing, we're thinking about, okay, here's the body systems, right? Okay, well, patient presents with such and such symptoms. What should be triggered as far as like a nurse or a doctor or a medical background? If you present these symptoms, I have to understand how those body systems that are producing these symptoms, I have to understand how those work in the first place before I can see what it would look like when they don't. So that's why, I'm going to say it in every single upload that has to do with these health classes, how important it is to not just skate by in these classes, but especially in the intro classes, because if you do not have a strong foundation built day one, you're not going to be able to make sense of, microbiology and Med-Surg 1, Med-Surg 2, Peds and OB. Like, you have to understand the reproductive system and also the endocrine system when you start getting into, if you have to take a Peds and OB class for your nursing degree. If you don't understand how those hormones work and those sexual organs and stuff like that, you're not going to understand the entire Peds and OB class, because that's all about, how embryo and fetus and all of this develops into a baby, and what happens, when the baby's growing, labor and delivery, postpartum, the healing of all of that, what's happening with the hormones, what's going on with breastfeeding. So again, it's all connected. So if you're not interested in, the prereq classes, that's the point. When you're in these prereq classes, you should be really finding out if you're even interested in this stuff, because I heard so many times and still hear, and it's so wrong, people saying, oh, I just got to get through these classes and like they have nothing to do with a nursing license and all this stuff. I disagree with that, because I can't tell you how much it has helped me that I drilled this stuff into my head and did it right from day one, and how much that helps me in my nursing career, being able to understand, like, my residents are presenting with this and that symptom, or the doctor starts talking about like different cancers, and I'm able to make the connection of, okay, that's why they're having these symptoms, or that's why I'm seeing this, that's why I'm seeing that. So don't just skate by in these classes, because if you're not interested in anatomy but you want to be a nurse, something's wrong there. I mean, micro is a little bit different of a situation, because micro is, I don't know if that's a requirement at your school, but at mine, it was a requirement for the ADN or the RN part of the nursing program. It was pretty far out, it was pretty, what do I want to say? It was pretty intricate, but it still helped me, because through micro, what comes to my mind, microbiology, what comes to my mind is how much that helped me with like the lymphatic system and immunity and different toxins coming into the body. That's the one thing that I really made the connection with between, microbiology and like my nursing. And so I'm still glad that I had to take that class, and it was so hard. Like, so many people they failed it. They were on their third time taking it. The teacher was very overqualified for one thing, but I loved it. Like, that was everybody's most hated class, but I ended up really liking it. So just don't base, your experience on everybody else's, because everybody has a different experience, and you just have to form that for yourself, and you have to decide that for yourself. You can't listen to everybody else's thoughts and everything else. I liked every single class I took from the day I stepped foot in college to go for nursing. I loved every single class that I had to take. So much so that even when I graduated and have been out in the field for like 5-6 years, I want to continue the scholarly part of it, and I want to help people, and I want to tutor people, and I want to share my experience and what I wish I would have known and what I loved so much, maybe what I would have changed. And then advice, when you get out in the nursing field or wherever, whatever endeavor is your end goal through school. But it's just, I'm so passionate about it because everything is about having good teachers. And if we don't have good teachers and good tutors and good, people who can pass this stuff along, we're not going to build good students and thus good nurses in the end if we are not teaching how to be one. You know what I mean? So it's all so cool and I love it.